Welcome to the Mentally Whole podcast. I am your host, Lauren Green. This podcast is a safe place for us to have weekly discussions about mental health, Christ, personal development, and the tools to live our best lives. Please stay tuned for a new episode. Hey y'all, welcome to another episode of the Mentally Whole podcast. I am your host, Lauren Green. Don't forget to share, rate, review, like the podcast on whatever streaming platform you use. Don't forget to fill out the listener survey. I will have the link to that in the description notes. So this is episode number 19. And before we get started, I just wanted to take a mini moment, I guess, before we get started into the topic. I just found out an hour or so ago that Kobe Bryant has passed away. I don't know why I'm so upset about this. I'm really in shock about him dying. I was the same way when Nipsey Hussle passed away. Mind you, I had never listened to any of Nipsey Hussle's music, but the fact that they started talking about his contributions to his city, and his love for Lauren London has just made me, immediately upset, because I'm like, why didn't I know about this person when he was alive? But nevertheless, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. The story is still developing on who was on the helicopter with him. So if you guys are sad, just like I'm sad, take time to really process, how you feel about Kobe Bryant passing away. It's super sad. I wasn't really expecting, any big celebrity to just pass away so soon in the year, but I'm just reminded that we all have our set time to leave this earth. But anywho, let's get into today's topic, because we are not talking about grief today. We are talking about shame. So I've been reading this book, Daring Greatly, by Brene Brown. If you haven't watched the Netflix series she has, go and watch it. It's really good. I mean, I liked it. It's really informative, and it's really it's thought-provoking. So if you like thought-provoking things, go watch it. So Google defined shame as a painful feeling of humiliation or distress caused by the consciousness of wrong or foolish behavior. So in Brene Brown's book, she has a whole chapter dedicated to shame, and she identifies shame as the intensely painful feeling or experience of believing that we are flawed and therefore unworthy of love and belonging. Now that's good, right? I oftentimes compare rejection as this dark cloud that kind of just follows you and grows. And I could also say the same thing about shame, that shame is something that it's like this dark cloud that just kind of follows you everywhere you go. So one of the things that I wanted to point out is that guilt, sometimes people use guilt and shame interchangeably, but they are two different concepts. So guilt basically means hey, I did something bad, right? I did something wrong, right? That's when you feel guilty. I feel guilty means, hey, you know what? I did something wrong, right? Shame means I am bad. Not that you did something wrong, but overall you are bad, right? Or you are, what's the word? that you are just completely flawed, right? That you are so flawed that you don't feel worthy of love and belonging. The next 2 points, Brene Brown has done extensive research on different mental health topics. And one of the things that I thought interesting, because I know I have a few male listeners, or if you have a husband or something that you think would like to hear this information, Brene Brown did research. She did research on how women and men experience shame differently, right? So we are going to get to that part of the book. So she asked different women, all types of women, to share their definitions about shame. So a lot of things that she heard was you have to look perfect, do perfect, be perfect. Anything less than being perfect is shaming. Another thing is like being judged by other mothers. What else? Examples also like being exposed. No matter what I achieve or how far I've come, where I've come from, what I've survived will always keep me from feeling like I'm good enough. What else? Another good one I thought was good was shame means never enough. Like you're never at home enough. You're never at work enough. You're never home with the family enough, right? And one of the biggest triggers for women as it relates to shame is how we look, right? Oftentimes with women, we are always caught up in or always feel shame around how thin we are, how beautiful we look, how young we are, and also how old we are. That can cause us shame in our society. And another shame trigger for women is motherhood, right? And this one's also a loaded topic because womanhood and motherhood they are very tightly bound to each other. And oftentimes when women have infertility issues or just can't get pregnant, there's a lot of shame around that, right? Like, well, why can't you have kids? Why can't you do that? You know what I'm saying? It's a lot of shame around motherhood. And also, even if not even infertility, it could also be how you raise your children, how you talk to them, how you give them consequences. Someone could shame you for that. Okay, so we're going to get into how men experience shame. So the men's answers were very different from, sorry y'all, the mic was acting weird. They are very different from the women's answers. So she, surveyed men. She asked men what they think shame is. So shame to men that she talked to was that shame is failure, right? So shame is just failure, like being a failure in any area of your life. This is for the men. Shame could be just being wrong, a sense of being defective. Shame happens when people think you're soft. It's degrading and shaming to be seen as anything but tough. Revealing any weakness is shaming. Showing fear is shameful. Shame is being seen as the guy who can shove up, is the guy you can shove up against the lockers. Or worse, fear is being criticized or ridiculed, right? So all of this, right? A lot of the shame messages for men are really about being flawed, being wrong, being defective, and also showing vulnerability, right? Because revealing your weaknesses and showing fear, all of that is vulnerability, right? So for men, a lot of shame is being weak, and I really thought that was interesting because a lot of times in society, men are taught to be strong and, be like very masculine and strong. And I thought that was very interesting because to them, showing weakness is saying, hey, I'm bad, right? Or, hey, this is weakness. I'm not a man if I'm not strong. I'm not a man if I don't have it all together, right? So I have a few tips to go through. This isn't going to be a long episode because, it's Sunday and I do have to watch Power and I have to do some chores. Like I need to, do some stuff around the house. So tips to overcome shame. So I have 3. Practice courage, right? Practice courage. Dare to be great. Dare to be vulnerable. Dare to be brave, right? Reach out to someone that you trust and be like, hey, I am dealing with a lot of shame or a lot of guilt, right? Just reach out and tell someone what is going on, right? Also, be kind to yourself and love yourself. I can't stress this one enough because a lot of times, sometimes the way we talk to ourselves is not kind, right? And everything starts in the mind, right? And if you have negative thoughts about yourself, that leads into you having poor or low self-esteem, right? So please be kind and love yourself. Amen. Improved self-esteem all 2020. Okay? youarethebomb.com all 2020. The last tip is own the story, right? Tell your story. Don't bury the story. Don't shove it under the rug. Don't let the story define you, right? We all make mistakes, but you are not the mistake. Do not let the mistake or whatever you did define you. You are still amazing. You are still a work of art. You are still God's masterpiece, no matter how many things you've done wrong, right? Don't let it define you and don't bury the story. Share your story with someone you trust, right? So this was today's episode on shame. I hope it blessed you guys because when I was doing my outline for it, it blessed me. So have a great day. I hope you guys have a great week. And yeah, stay tuned for next week's episode.